Aloha and welcome to Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com. This is an episode of Enki Speaks, and I am your host, Janet Carol Lesson, with my co-host, anthropologist Dr. Sasha Lesson. This is a series called The Anunnaki and Us. 30 chapters of our history from 4.5 billion years ago to 311 BCE. Today we're going to cover two chapters. Chapter 20 from 8670 BC called Pyramid War II, Inanna and Enlilites defeated the Enkiites. And we're going to cover Chapter 21, Anu visited Earth, vetted Inanna, and forgave Marduk. So, I think that's it. And here is our co-host, Dr. Sasha Lesson.
So let's give you a little background just to catch you up or remind you if you've been following us on Chapter 20, the Pyramid War, where the Enlilites defeat the Enkiites. You'll recall, or you won't recall, and I'll tell you anyhow, that Marduk, the prince that had been denied rule of his home planet because his grandfather overthrew a previous king and was trying to cut out his line. So he is developing a counterforce to the heir of Anu, his grandfather, and the guy on Earth who's the heir of Anu is a guy named Enlil. And so basically these are the people that are stationed in Mesopotamia, the clan of Enlil. And Marduk, who's the son of Enki, who's got Africa, and Marduk particularly has Egypt, and he's also establishing a sort of a beachhead at his dad's place in Basra in Iraq. And so now he's really going to see if he can take over the space facilities that the Earthlings have built since the deluge. And so that the space facilities, the big landing, is now on the Sinai Peninsula, and the controls are on Mount Mashu right nearby, and then there's some more mission control for the whole thing is from Jerusalem. So Marduk is closing in on these positions that the Enlilites hold. In the meantime, the Enlilites, through their champion, Ninurta, have been building an alternate spaceport at the top of the Andes at Lake Titicaca area. So, but Marduk is arming his armies, and he's ready to take over Sinai at this point, about 8670 BCE. So, first of all, he gives metal weapons to his Earthling armies, and then he advances on Sinai. Ninurta, the Enlilite champion, and Inanna, Enlil's granddaughter, launched their planes. Their planes had solar, sound, sonar, and explosive weapons of mass destruction, and with these weapons they destroyed Marduk's Earthling armies. Well, Marduk, his father Enki, his brother Nergal, and his nephew, grandson, actually, Haran, retreated into the Great Pyramid. Ninurta and Inanna broke into the pyramid. Well, Ninurta captured the leaders, but Marduk kept running. Inanna pursued him. She was going to avenge Dumuzi, her boyfriend, her husband, her lover, depending on how you look at it, who Marduk had gotten killed. Anyway, so there she's chasing him. And Inanna knew that Marduk had made Dumuzi die, though Marduk had blamed, quote, an evil emissary for killing Dumuzi. So Inanna's got these techno weapons, and she's shooting at Marduk and chasing him, and he's running through the chambers of the Great Pyramid, and he radios, or however they communicate. They have some way of instant communicating to King Anu, and King Anu beams back to Inanna, hey, you better not follow him any further. He's got weapons built in that'll he'll kill you. You just better let him surrender. And so that's what happened.
Anu ordered Enlil and his chiefs to surround the pyramid. Your side here we shall, to decide if you or an evil emissary killed Dumuzi. Excuse me. Sorry. Let's try that again. Your side, here we shall, to decide if you or an evil emissary killed Dumuzi, they told Marduk. When Marduk came out, the Enlilites assumed Anu would okay the conviction and death sentence for him. They sentenced Marduk to die slowly, with air but no food or water, in the king's chamber of the pyramid, and they sealed him in. He lapsed into unconsciousness. Marduk's wife Sarpanit and son Nabu beamed Anu to save Marduk. Anu heeded Sarpanit. Marduk, Anu reflected, carried Anu's genes through an unbroken line of royal men. Anu, Enki, then Marduk. Anu transmitted, "My grandson Marduk must not be slain." So Nigashita tunneled into the chamber and revived Marduk. The council banished Marduk from Egypt to North America. In Egypt, they now called Marduk Ra-Amen. Amen means hidden. Ninurta took weapons, energy generators, and control panels, as well as communication devices from the pyramid. Nimrod convened a peace conference. Enki accepted the Enlil's conditions of peace. Enki replaced Marduk Ra with Nigashina Thoth as the ruler of the Nile. Inanna objected. She said that she, not Thoth, should rule Egypt, since her fiancé Dumuzi, whom Marduk had killed, would have followed Marduk to Egypt's crown, and she then should get Egypt, since Dumuzi died. But Enlil overruled his feisty granddaughter and gave Egypt to Nigashita instead of her.
Enlil also defied Nimrod's plea to give command of the Sinai Mission Control Center at Jerusalem to their son Ninurta. Instead, Enlil favored Nannar-Sin, the son he'd had with his wife Ninlil. Enlil gave Canaan to Nannar and gave Jerusalem to Nannar's son Utu, or Shamash is his other name, while Thoth built the Heliopolis as a beacon city whose obelisks replaced the Gug stone that Ninurta had taken from the Giza pyramid.
Chapter 21. Anu visited Earth, bedded Inanna, and forgave Marduk.
Around 3800 BCE, Nibiru's king Anu and his wife Antu rocketed to Earth from Nibiru. They landed at Tilmun, the spaceport on the Sinai Peninsula. Enki, Enlil, and Nimrod, that's Anu's three grandchildren, greeted King Anu and... Three children. Did I say something else?
Grandchildren.
Oh, they were grand, but they were just children, not grandchildren. They greeted King Anu and Queen Antu as they got off at the Sinai Peninsula. And this is a quote. "At each other they looked, aging to examine. Though greater in Shars, Nibiru's orbits of Solaris, were the parents, younger than the children they looked. The two sons, Enki and Enlil, looked old and bearded. Ninmah, once a beauty, was bent and wrinkled." Enlil told Anu, "Enki was withholding from the other gods, my descendants, the divine formulas, the MEs, for hundreds of aspects of civilization, and only for his earthlings at Eridu does Enki and the MEs, he only lets them use it." Anu ruled, "Divine formulas, Enki, with the other gods share, so urban centers they all can establish. Civilization to all Sumer," that's Iraq, "grant."
"I dreamed," Enki said. "Your plenipotentiary Galzu gave me plans for Ziusudra's boat. I woke and kicked the stone tablet with boat plans engraved." Pazud, Anu said, "Never did I send a secret plenipotentiary to Earth." "Whose emissary, if not yours, was Galzu?" Enki and Enlil in unison said. "Who the earthlings to save wanted? Who on Earth made us stay?" "For the creator of all did Galzu appear," said the king. Enki and Enlil exclaimed, "On account of Galzu, Ziusudra and the seed of life were saved. On account of Galzu, on Earth we remained. The day you to Nibiru return, you shall die, so did Galzu to us say." Incredulous of that was Anu. The change in cycles between Earth and Nibiru indeed havoc did cause, but with elixirs cured it was. Nimma said the Creator planned for the Anunnaki to use Erectus genes to adapt the Nibiruan genome to Earth with Erectus genes, copper, and African minerals.
Anu said, while fates we decried, the hand of destiny every step directed. The will of the Creator of all is, on earth and for earthlings, only emissaries are we. The earth to the earthlings belongs. To preserve and advance them we were indeed intended. Whatever destiny for earth and earthlings, let it be so. If mankind and not Anunnaki to inherit the earth is destined, let us destinies help. Give mankind knowledge. Up to the measure of secrets of heaven and earth them teach. Laws of justice and righteousness teach them. Then depart, leave. Enlil, Anu, Nimma, and Enki then decided, quote, cities of man to establish there in sacred precincts. Abodes for the Anunnaki create. Kingship as on Nibiru on earth establish. Crown and scepter to be to a chosen man give. By him the word of the Anunnaki to the people convey. Work and dexterity this king will enforce. In the sacred precincts, priesthood he will establish. The Anunnaki as lofty lords to serve and worship this king will establish. Secret knowledge should be taught, civilization to mankind you are to convey. So earthlings learned the palace servant duties, and they became the religious rituals to memorialize the so-called gods to this day. For example, serving meat became burnt offerings. The table became an altar. Carrying the local Anunnaki ruler around on a dais became a procession of statues. Anunnaki palaces became temples.
Anu decreed 4 regions, 3, Sumer, Egypt, and Africa, and Indus Valley. Region 1, Enlilites, Enlil and his lineage named kings, men descended from Ziusudra's sons Shem and Japhet the Fair, through whom they ruled Sumer. Shem and his successors ran nations from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. These descendants of Shem settled the ex-spaceport area of Iraq and the landing place at Lebanon. Japhet's issue ruled lands in Asia Minor, the Black and Caspian Sea areas, as well as the nearby coast and islands as they recovered from the flood. Region 2, Enkiites, Anu said Enki and his descendants ruled Egypt and Africa through successors of Ziusudra's son Ham the Dark. Ham's line ruled Canaan, Cush, Mizraim, Nubia, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Libya. They spread from the highlands to the reclaimed lowlands. Region 3, Inanna would rule the Indus Valley to settle around 28 BC as a grain source for the other regions. Region 4, Nimmas. She reigned in the 4th region, Tilmun, which is the Sinai. Anu reserved Sinai for Nibiruans and their descendants.
Anu to his great-granddaughter Inanna took a liking. He drew her close. He hugged her. He kissed her. At Anu's temple in Uruk, Sumer's sacred precinct, Anu's wife Antu taught Inanna tantric sexual meditations and how to channel the sexual energy she and Anu would share, to channel it to elevate their whole clan. Then, Antu ritually gave Inanna to Antu, and Antu and the Nibiruan elite meditated outside the love chamber as Anu and Inanna made love. Antu and the Nibiruan royals who were meditating while this happened went into states of ecstasy, epiphany, satori. It was like, this is a quote, the sexual experience was a merging of energies which enhanced the creative powers of all these, the partners and the aggregate of their race. And after this, Inanna renamed his great-granddaughter Anu renamed his great-granddaughter Inanna Anu's beloved. That's what the name Inanna means, Anu's beloved. Before this, her name had been Irnini, and the deal was he was going to have her in bed whenever he visited Earth. And so he gave her this temple where they made love, and he also gave her the sky ship that he had been using to survey Earth. That was now hers. Inanna, he said, could run Uruk's temple through a priest king, which would be one of the sons of her brother Utu with an earthling. The earthlings then paved Uruk with limestone blocks brought from the mountains 50 miles to the east. They erected a thick 6-mile-long wall around Uruk's living quarters in Inanna's beautiful new temple.
Anu and Antu flew in the skyship that they were using the skyship that Anu would leave to Inanna, and they flew with Ninurta to the Tiahuanaco. How do you pronounce that?
Tiahuanaco.
Tiahuanaco.
Pronounce the H like a W.
Tiahuanaco. There we go. Temple, observatory, and metallurgy tin works that Ninurta had built. The king saw the spaceport in the 200-square-mile Pampa plain below, where on the runway Anu and Antu's celestial chariot stood ready. With gold to the brim, it was loaded. Anu pardoned Marduk, left for Nibiru. He ordered Marduk from exile in North America to Tiahuanaco. Marduk and Nabu came to the king and told him Sarpanit had died. Anu pardoned Marduk and commuted his exile. After Anu and Antu flew back to Nibiru, Marduk raged. Inanna, he said, used her sexual access to the king to make him think Marduk had ordered Dumuzi run to death. Now, Marduk whined, Anu gave Inanna the Indus basin, as well as Uruk. Enlil noted Marduk's attitude and told Adad to guard the Enlilite South American facilities from Marduk while the other Nibiruan Earth mission leaders returned to Sumer. Ninurta asked Enlil at Eridu for computer programs known as MEs that he needed for a city. When Enki temporized, Ninurta got King Anu to order Enki to give Ninurta the MEs. With the MEs, Ninurta had his earthlings create Kishi, the first city and an earthling king that he appointed rulership over. Then Ninurta had his men build Lagash, a city with a hangar for his aircraft, an armory for his missiles, and a temple home for himself and his wife, Baal. Inanna fumed while male Enlilite royals built cities in Sumer. While the domain of her own, she demanded, the third region, the Indus Valley, after the second one will come, her leaders thus assured her. Nimma reigned for Nibiru.
City complex, as good as the one Ninurta had at Kishi, and she wanted hers built around the temple that Anu had given her at Uruk. And so Ninurta had used 50 MEs, these programs, that the king, Anu, had made Enki give him, and these were programs for math, smithing, pottery, making beer, wagon wheels, and law, and also Enki gave the MEs, he said, that would benefit mankind step by step. Well, Inanna wanted those too. She needed Enki to give her the MEs, so she flirted with him at his villa on the Persian Gulf. She wanted especially the computer programs for weaponry, statecraft, math, writing, metallurgy, masonry, arts, and courts. And not only that, did she have all these kinds of MEs, she really wanted to connect with Enki because she knew he'd thrill her because he was a master of advanced sexual tantric practices. So Inanna visited Enki at his palace down at Zimbabwe. She got him drunk. She seduced him, and he, drunk and happy, gave her the MEs. She slipped the MEs to her pilot. Take him back to Uruk, she said. When Enki sobered up, he caught her and locked her up and said, I want those MEs back. Her granddad, Enlil, flew into Eridu. And Inanna shouted, By right the MEs I obtained, Enki in my hands placed them voluntarily. So did Inanna to Enlil say. The truth, Enki meekly admitted.
Inanna chose Sumer's first king, the Lugal. He spoke for the gods to the earthlings. 23 successive Lugals ruled Sumer for 24,510 years. Lugals shifted venue from Ninurta's Kishi to Inanna's Uruk, then to Akkad. When Enlil ordered kingship moved to Uruk, Inanna launched the enemies that she seduced from Enki. She made Uruk a mighty city-state and made Enmerkar, son of and successor to her nephew, its ruler. Enlil named the era his, which is the age of the bull. He had his sons and grandsons declare themselves and other Nibiru's descendants gods. Mixed Nibiruns and earthlings were demigods, who would direct earthlings to build temples and cities to serve the gods. He ranked the gods. His father, King Anu, he ranked at 60. He numbered himself and his successor, Ninurta, at 50. Enlil ranked Enki 40, Nigashita 52, Nanar 30. Nanar's son Utu ranked 20. Utu's sister Inanna was 15. Utu from rebuilt Sippur, home of Sumer's supreme court, and made laws for the earthlings. Nanar ruled the city of Urim. Adad returned from the Andes to a temple in the mountains north of Sumer. Marduk and Nabu moved to Enki's place in Eridu. I just wanted to add, I think Nimma was made of 5. He did not like his sister at this point.
Yeah, and you notice that he's the way now that Enlil's in charge, he's changing. He's making Toth, who is also a son of Enki, way higher than all the other sons of Enki, and that's because his granddaughter, Erishkigal, is Toth's mother.
Right.
So he's trying to crowd out the other clan entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Enlilites did introduce schools. They taught earthlings to write. They taught them how to print on clay. They showed their earthlings how to find, extract, transport, refine, and alloy minerals. And through their kings and the administrations that Enki's sons set up, they introduced silver money to earthlings, so all earthlings could buy and sell. Sumerian cities were very highly organized, with central government and social class structures. Each city had up to 110,000 people in it. The cities were huge, and agriculture still took the majority of workers, but they made so much staple food that the citizens didn't have to all be farmers. Some could work as masons, bakers, weavers, tradesmen. They had a municipal bureaucracy. The kings in Sumer had assemblies where they could frame laws, and they chose court justices. Proceedings, judgments, and contracts were recorded. And the justices in ancient Sumer acted like juries. A court was 3 or 4 judges, one was a professional, the others were drawn from a panel of 36 men. Earthling kings learned to carry out major construction work with architectural plans. They learned to organize and feed huge labor forces. They flattened land, raised mounds, molded bricks, transported stones, brought rare materials from afar. They cast metal, and they shaped utensils. The Sumerians built also many kinds of ships. Some were able to reach faraway lands in search of metals, rare woods, and stones. So Enlil's sons and grandsons gave Sumer much. They gave Sumer assemblies, courts, schools, writing, printing, prospecting, mining, road and shipbuilding, all in a petrol-fueled money economy.
So they had petrol back then, even though they had other ways of...
Oh, it oozed. It was oozing out of the ground all over Iraq.
Yeah, and then you whatever point, I think you just missed it, that the cities were up to like 50,000 people by 2700 BC. And
they grew. They kept getting bigger and bigger. Yes, that's right.
And I also wanted to comment, even though they had these kind of tantric mating rituals, like Enki had sex, made love with, whatever you want to call it, Inanna, and Anu made love with Inanna. They didn't necessarily result in any children, right? We don't have any records of either unions or meetings creating children, do we?
I'm just trying to think about Nanar and his and Nangel. I'm not sure about that, Janet. There may be some places where it did result.
We're still researching.
And there's a lot of different. For example, there's different accounts of Inanna and Dumuzi getting together. In some of the accounts, they flirted with each other and they couldn't wait to get together. In other ones, they were lovers, but they weren't married. In Harding's account, that she looking at the
Chris Hardy or Harding?
Hardy.
Okay. In her account, she said what? About Dumuzi and Inanna.
That they were actually married as husband and wife, and that had already happened, just that Inanna hadn't yet conceived.
Right, and that's the whole thing that that Lawrence Gardner talks about. There's two parts of the marriage. There's kind of like the engagement, and then they have the conception. But that's another story, and I don't know all those parts.
But basically, in their tantric ritual, they were each person in their each of these so-called gods, these Anunnaki, wanted a larger population for their armies and to serve them, and so they would do rituals. The marriage rituals, at some point, were to deliberately create babies, and so it was a couple coming together to make tantric love very slowly, and a woman really opening up to make a baby that would be healthy and that would survive. And then it came down to, especially in Inanna's domains, that the kings in her area had the right of first night, and before a groom could have sex with his bride, the king got to do it first. And this, as you'll see, will lead to a lot of trouble when people are on the verge of rebelling in Uruk against their king, King Gilgamesh.
Well, from my understanding, they wanted to up-level humanity by, putting their seed in as many females as possible, because this continual mating with humanity, put more interfering genes out there into the population, which kept it up-leveled, up-leveling.
Gilgamesh's mother, Ninsun, and Inanna had many conversations where they were saying, you're not controlling your population. Your king is just pissing everybody up, and they're going to riot against him. You have to do something about Gilgamesh. And so that he had somehow used this right to such excess that whether or not they thought it was good, there was a lot of angry grooms that did not want Gilgamesh to be first.
Right. And we don't really know exactly how that happened. We're just reporting it. So, anything else before we sign off today, sweetheart? On chapter... Oh, that's what I wanted to say. Okay, anything more on chapter 2021 before we sign off?
That's it for that.
Okay, so next chapter is chapter 21, and... Oh, that ends chapter 21. 22 will be about the story behind the Tower of Babel, which was really just Marduk's launch tower at Bab-Bil on Enki's estate near Basra in Iraq. And I want to remind you about our websites, which are enkispeaks.com, ENKISPEAKS.com. And we also have aquarianradio.com, extraterrestrial.com, and we have experiencersnetwork.com, and NIMH, who is the mother of humanity, NINMAH.com. We have 3 books out, working on several more. The current books we have out and ready are, what are they? Anunnaki, Gods No More. Anunnaki, Legacy of the Gods. Dance of the Souls. Book 1 is Pierce the Veil. Let me say it again. Dance of the Souls, Book 1, Pierce the Veil. And they're all available on Amazon.com, and there are links to these books on our website. Please buy our books.
Yeah, if you would like to get an overall view of these chapters, it's all summarized there on aquarianradio.com. It's called 30 Chapters, and you can, if you've missed a chapter, you can pick up on it, or if you want to see how it fits with earlier chapters, they're all the auditory is there, together with hot links to extensive articles on each subject.
If you want to contact us, write to us at aquarianradio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And many of our sites have places where you comment, but please do join our sites in order to comment. And you can share any of these episodes. You can download and embed and spread the word, because our goal here is to awaken up humanity, become conscious, kind, loving, and aware, and create a new paradigm for all of us to live in dignity, beauty, peace.
The Anunnaki were greedy, warlike, and degraded women. We can do a lot better than that.
Well, that's the whole point. You looked at the women were way down there with their numbers of 15 and 5, and that was, they used to be equal. Women were seen as equal back on Nibiru before they came here, and so things degenerated over here on the earth. And they once were equal with, men were equal with women, and that's what we're, it's an imbalance both internally and externally, because when you're imbalanced as a society, masculine and feminine, you're also imbalanced within yourself, which you have your own inner masculine and feminine, and that is a part of Tantra.
If I may, from my perspective, because I read a lot of stuff by a lot of different people, but I'm impressed by a fellow anthropologist named Chris Hardy, who says that even on Nibiru, women were delegated to a very, very secondary position, like a decoration, like Michelle Obama, rather than the person with real power. And so I'm not sure that they ever understood that they were cutting themselves off from half the peace and wisdom and cooperation that they could have had if they had really, truly made a partnership with feminine consciousness.
Well, that's because they had endless wars where they, in their society, they sent the men off to war, which is very smart, to not send your women, so you extinct yourselves. You need your women; they can breed. And they sent the men off to war, and then they got, there were too many women and not enough men, and so the imbalance created women becoming second-class citizens, because then, in order to reestablish their population, a man had to have more than one wife or breed with more than one woman, and somehow that just made it, well, it does. Just think about it. When you have a polygamous type situation, the women are not seen as equal, and the things are out of balance. What did you have to say, sweetheart?
Well, you could even go back further than that. And why were they warring? You're just saying, well, looking for the war, but why were they warring? Okay, and so that comes down to something else. What the records say is disputes grew into battles, which escalated to nuclear exchanges, which almost killed everybody. And so if we go back to disputes and really look at that, and it's the and perhaps it is the dichotomous idea that you have to have a winner or a loser, rather than to say, a dispute is an opportunity to synergize to a higher level and create a system that includes the needs of all disputants, which is the synergy that they lacked and which we understand, because we are compassionate in a way that they weren't. Maybe they are now, but they weren't. And so that it's a matter of saying, every time there's a dispute, no matter how irrational the other side might seem, if we can extend ourselves to, there's the bell, I can't say anymore.
No, that's not the bell.
If we can extend ourselves to see what the other disputant needs, and see if there's some way we can coordinate our needs getting met and the needs of that the other disputant, we have the possibility of coordinating and synergizing, so there's more for everyone. And so I think that it's not just a matter of war caused it. We have to look at what causes war.
Well, most definitely. There's stories that there's been galactic and universal wars, and so when you take it to the next level of existence, what caused self and not self to start warring with itself, since we're all one anyway? It's just kind of ridiculous. So when you see the absurdity of war, no matter where you are in the continuum, whether you're on the universal level and you're God source looking at existence, or you're, the smallest of small, little human female looking at the continuum going, this is absurd. The very least you can do is stop the war within yourself. And so that's, getting balanced and centered within yourself personalities, and then looking at your relationships. What can I do to learn how to create the best relationships I can, to love to my fullest potential in the short little 50 to 100 years we're given, some less. And so war can always be stopped. There's no. I hate when people say it's just what it is, always was, always was, and always will be.
You can change the energy of war to the energy of sports and the energy of art. You can sing opera and ballet with each other. Can you imagine Mr. Putin and Mr. Obama doing Swan Lake?
I think that would be cute. Let's YouTube it. With that, I do have to go. That bell was something that we had to pay attention to. But thank you so much for the dialogue, sweetheart Dr. Lesson. And thank you, listeners, for joining in today. We will continue this tomorrow, another time. And much love, blessings, and aloha. This has been Janet Carroll Lesson and
Dr. Sasha Lesson,
broadcasting live from Maui, Hawaii.
Yeah.